All right, so today's class for ratio, rate, and percent, we're looking at converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. So a little bit of it will be review because we've already covered going between fractions and decimals, but today we're also going to add on percentages. So firstly, fractions, decimals, and percents, they're all representing a ratio or a comparison. So a fraction, it's a comparison of how many parts of a whole. A decimal is a comparison of tens, hundreds, thousands, basically depending on how many numbers are behind the decimal, which is its place value. And then a percent is a comparison of how many parts out of 100. So if we were to write a fraction, let's say we had 7 out of 10, that's the fraction. If we were to write this as a decimal, we have the fraction out of 10, so that's in our tenths position. So our decimal value would be 0.7. And if we were to change that to a percent out of 100, you can just multiply that by 100, or like I showed you, you can just move your decimal place 2 to the right. So 1, 2, your decimal place would go there, making it 70%. All right, so that's just a quick way of going between fractions, decimals, and percents. So we can interchange between them. So a bit of review, fractions to decimals, we've already done this. So if we had 7 out of 8, we know we can just divide 7 out of 8, right? And that'll give us our decimal answer. So it's already done here for us. We're just dividing the denominator into the numerator, okay? And we get our decimal answer, 0.875. So let's try an example here. Convert the following fractions to decimals. So the first one here, 13 out of 20. So that means we're taking 13 and it's being divided by 20. All right, so our decimal point is right there. 20 cannot go into 13. Now we can start adding our zeros here. So 20 can go into 130 now, 6 times without going over. So that gives me 120. Next, we would subtract. That gives me 10. We'll add another 0, bring that down. Now we have 100. 20 can go into 105 times. And then we subtract, and we have nothing left. So our answer there would be 0.65. All right, for this question, first thing we'll do is, well, you could change it to improper fractions, but we know 3 here represents the whole amount. So we'll just write down the 3 as the whole amount. So next we have the 3 over 5. So what we can do is just divide 3 is being divided by 5. All right, so 5 cannot go into 0. So we'll add a 0 here. 5 can go into 30 now, 6 times. And that's our answer there. So 0.6 is the answer. So we had 3 wholes and then the 0.6. So our answer there is 3.6. All right, and then we were able to go from decimals to fractions. So this should be review as well. So take a note of the last place there. It's 7, and it's in the hundredths position. So we can write 67 over 100. All right, so we always determine our denominator by the place value of the last number in the decimal. So it was in the hundredths place, so our denominator is 100. The only thing you would do next is reduce, but 67 over 100, we can't reduce that any further, so that is the answer in fraction form. All right, I'll give you guys this first one. Try this, 0.38. We need to put it into a fraction, but make sure you do reduce it. Okay, so for 0.38, the 8 is in the hundredths position, so we can write that as 38 over 100. All right, but we do have to reduce, so 38 and 100, we can divide top and bottom by 2. That'll give me 19. over 50. All right, and then we can't reduce any further. For this question here, 53.4, so 53 is the whole number, so we'll just leave 53 as is. Then we have 4 in the 10th position, so it's 4/10. All right, but 4/10, it can be reduced. We can reduce top and bottom by dividing by 2, so that gives me 53 and 2/5. Okay, next we're looking at going from a fraction to a percent. All right, so like I talked about before, percentages are always out of 100. So all we have to do here is set up a ratio equation, kind of like equivalent fractions, and we're gonna put x over 100, so something like this. So we have 17 over 20 is equal to x over 100. All right, what is it out of 100? So you can use the method of cross multiplication here, but you can also use the method of equivalent fractions here. So you can see here that 20 times 5 gives me 100. So we can do the same thing here and multiply by 5. And that gives me x is equal to 85, therefore 85%. All right, because 85 over 100 gives me 85%. Now, the other way you can do this is the cross multiplication, which we had looked at last class. Cross multiplication. So we would still set it up the same way. 17 over 20 equals x over 100. So you multiply the two numbers that are diagonal from each other and then divide by the other number. So it would become 17 times 100 divided by 20, and we still get our answer of 85, so therefore 85%. Yes, therefore. Okay, so to figure out x here, we are going to multiply, cross multiply, so 19 times 100, and then we're going to divide by 30. All right, so you can just put that into your calculator and you get 63.3%. Or you can just round it to 63%. All right, next one we have 13 over 5. So same thing, we have 13 over 5. What is that out of 100? All right, so you can do cross multiplication. Solve for x. 13 times 100 divide by 5. Or you can see that this will make an equivalent fraction, right? If we look here, we can multiply by 20. And then we can also do the same thing here to the top to figure out x. All right, either method, cross multiplication or equivalent fraction, we do get 260%. All right, because our numerator was way larger than our denominator, so our percent is over 100%. So 260% for that one. All right, so next we're looking at going from a percent to a fraction. All right, so like we saw, percentages are always out of 100, so we can write percent over 100 and then reduce if possible. So for here, if it's 86%, that means it's 86 out of 100. All right, and then of course, you can reduce that. You can divide by 2, top and bottom, and we get 43 out of 50. All right, now sometimes you'll get a percent that's not a whole number. So we'll take a look at that example next. But always our first step is write out the percent divided by 100. Step 2, if it's not a whole number, you're going to multiply the top and bottom by 10 for every number after the decimal point. All right, so if there's one number after the decimal point, you'll multiply by 10. If there's two numbers after the decimal point, multiply by 100. And then lastly, always reduce the fraction. So we'll do this one as an example of that. So if it's 35.5%, that basically is 35.5%. And that would mean it's 35.5 out of 100. All right, so to make it a whole number, we're just going to multiply by 10. So I'm just going to show that here, that I'm just multiplying by 10 just to make it a whole number. So top and bottom gets multiplied by 10. So that now makes it 355 over 1,000. All right, now it'll be easier to reduce. We can divide by 5, top and bottom, and we get 71 out of 200. All right, so that is our fraction for 35.5%. For this one here, we have 64%. I'll let you guys try that. So put that over 100 and then make sure to reduce to get the fraction form. For 64%, that would be 64 out of 100. Okay, because percentages are out of 100. And then just make sure to reduce. So 64 and 100 can both be reduced by 4. So we do get 16 out of 25. All right, so next we're looking at going from a decimal to percent. So I did show this briefly in the beginning of class where you can move your decimal point 2 to the right, which is the same thing as multiplying the decimal by 100. So you can take the 0.76 and you can multiply it by 100, which will give you your percent, so 76%. But like I said, the other method is to just move your decimal point 2 to the right. All right, so 1, 2, decimal place goes there, so it's 76%. All right, so move decimal 2 places to the right. All right, let's take a look at a couple examples here. All right, just put these in the chat. All right, so we're converting decimals to percents here. So we can use the method of just moving the decimal place 2 to the right. So 1, 2, that gives me 38%. So just 1, 2, new decimal goes there. 0.01, 2 to the right, 1, 2, decimal place is going there. So it's 0.1%. And then 0.235, moving that decimal 2 to the right there. So it becomes 23.5%. All right, but like we discussed before, you could also multiply by 100. Multiply the decimal by 100. All right, but just remembering to move the decimal 2 to the right works as well. All right, so if we're going from percent to decimal, you're just going to move the decimal place 2 to the left, or you're going to divide by 100. All right, so divide by 100 or move the decimal 2 places to the left. All right, so if we have 68%, we're going to move it 2 to the left. That would give me 0.68 as its decimal form. All right, give those a try quickly. All right, so for 1%, we are moving the decimal 2 to the left, which gives me my answer of 0.01. All right, here we have 125%. Our decimal place is right there. We're moving it 2 to the left. Our new decimal place will go right there. So in decimal form, it would be 1.25. Okay, so 1 whole. That's why we have it over 100%. All right, so lastly, we just need to complete this table. So fraction, decimal, and percent. So if you've just been given one form, you will be able to get all 3 forms. All right, so let's try this. I'm going to pause here. All right, so completing this table. So our first row, we have 85% is what's given to us. So we know we can move our decimal place 2 to the left to put it into decimal form. So that would give me 0.85. All right, now we have to put it into fraction form. 5 here is in the hundredths place. So we can put this as 85 over 100. And then we just have to make sure we reduce. All right, we can reduce by dividing by 5, and that will give me 17 over 20. All right, next we're given a decimal. We have to figure out our fraction and percent. So going from decimal to percent, that's very easy. We're just going to move our decimal place 2 to the right. So that gives me 12%. And then putting this into fraction form, 0.12. So again, it's in the hundredths position. So we'd put that as 12 over 100. We'll make sure to reduce. We can reduce by dividing by 4. And that'll give me 3 over 25. All right, next we are given the fraction. We have to come up with a decimal and our percentage. So we know that when we have a fraction, we can put it into decimal form by dividing. So that's one method, is to divide. So we'll just do it here on the side here. 23 is being divided by 25. We can't go into 23. We'll start adding zeros. So 230, 25 can go into 239 times, which is 225. And then we'll subtract, and that gives me 5. We'll bring down another 0, and then 25 will go into 50 2 times to give me 50. And then that's it. So our decimal form is 0.92. Then we have to figure out percent. Now, the other trick you can use here is we know we have 23 over 25, and we have to put that out of 100. All right, so you can use cross multiplication here or equivalent fraction. 25 goes into 100 4 times, so 23 times 4 is 92. So 92%. All right, so if you had done this and figured out your percentage first, you could move your decimal 2 places to the left to get the decimal as well. All right, so there's lots of different ways to figure out going from fraction decimal to percent. All right, so we'll stop here for today.